Today we'll be talking about visual imagery, or how we can imagine things in our mind and see them without necessarily having our eyes open.
Specifically, we're going to be talking about mental maps. The basic idea behind a mental map is that if you're familiar with an area, you could give the locations of objects or places without necessarily having to have your eyes open. So you don't necessarily have to know where north, east, south, west are specifically, but I can tell you that my apartment is in this direction or the windows are over here.
Now, from one of the earliest mental mapping studies in 1990 by Franklin and Tversky, it was found that objects above and below a person are often remembered best, while objects to the left and right of a person aren't remembered as well.
So when we decided to test this out, we expected that those results would carry over to modern day. Also, to add another layer, we predicted that if we had participants spin around in circles before answering questions about what they had read, they would have less recall due to disorientation.
We had 6 male participants and 6 female participants. All were students at USC, and each one was between the age of 19 and 20.
Each participant was asked to read a paragraph written in the second person describing objects above, below, in front, behind, and to the right or to the left of them until they felt confident in the information covered. On average, it took participants about 2 minutes to read the prompt.
There were 2 different prompts, each were the same in difficulty. After the participant read the prompt, they were asked to give the paper back to us and answered a few questions about the orientation of the objects around them. Half of the participants were asked to spin around in a circle for 10 seconds before we asked them the questions.
What object is above you right now?
Security camera.
What object is below you right now?
And ice storm.
Of what?
A swan.
What object is to the left of you right now?
A potted tree.
What object is ahead of you right now?
A balcony.
And what object is behind you right now?
A portrait of a man.
Okay. What object is above you right now?
Didn't say.
It didn't say what was above you?
I don't think so.
Okay. What object is below you right now?
4.
What object is to the right of you right now?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. What object is ahead of you right now?
Portrait.
What object is behind you right now?
Table.
Okay. It was found that subjects who were asked to spin before answering questions had an overall accuracy rate of 50%. Subjects who were not asked to spin had an accuracy rate of 64%, signifying that asking the participants to spin did have a small effect on their ability to recall what they had just read. Upon analyzing, it was found that there is not much of a difference between subjects who used mental imagery and subjects who used repetition. However, we did have a very small sample size, and the paragraph was fairly short, so there is room for error in these results.
Our expectations based on prior studies were not met. Instead, we found that when participants were asked about the object directly above them, they answered correctly 44% of the time. When they were asked about the object directly below them, they also answered correctly 44% of the time. When asked about the objects directly behind them, participants answered correctly 78% of the time. When asked about the object that was directly ahead of them in this scenario, they answered 66% of the time correctly. And when asked about the objects to their left or the right, participants answered correctly 66% of the time.
Therefore, from these results, it was concluded that subjects were best at identifying objects directly ahead and behind of them, and they were worse at identifying objects above and below them. And somewhere in the middle were objects to the left or to the right of them.
When recalling a mental map, the hippocampus is activated. The hippocampus, which is already known for its major role in memory, helps to orient the person with their memory of where landmarks are in relation to them, and acts as a sort of compass by use of memory.
Visual imagery, specifically as it pertains to mental maps, have a lot of implications for our daily lives. For example, mental maps are very important in the way that we memorize things. As we saw in the Memory Palace video, using mental imagery can help us to memorize things that are typically difficult or more obscure in a more simplified way. Mental maps can also help us to organize our ideas by laying them out in a visual field. In addition to that, it can also help us to problem solve, like using visual imagery to sort through the possibilities of a problem or to picture something in our minds can greatly help us to work it out rather than just using memorization or instinct.
Thanks for watching. We hope you all enjoyed it.